her face in statues and paintings. Her name is a synonym for terror. Snakes for hair, a gaze that freezes men to stone. But what if the story we've been told is a lie? What if Medusa was never born a monster? What if she was created punished for surviving an act of violence? Today, we unravel the myth to find the woman and ask a difficult question. In this ancient tragedy, who were the real villains? The story of Medusa isn't a single tale, but a tapestry woven across centuries. Early Greek sources like Hesiod simply described the Gorgons as monstrous beings. But it's the Roman poet Ovid, in his masterpiece, the Metamorphoses, who gives us the most familiar and heart-wrenching version. Medusa as a beautiful temple maiden. It's this version that changes everything, turning a monster myth into a profound human tragedy. Over time, other authors, artists, and mythographers added their own layers, sometimes making her mortal, sometimes immortal. But they all circle back to one pivotal moment, the violation that would redefine her forever. We'll trace that story and then see what it means for us today. According to Ovid, Medusa was once a priestess, devoted to Athena, the goddess of wisdom and warfare. She was renowned for her beauty, particularly her stunning hair. The temple was her sanctuary, a place of sacred vows and divine protection. The myths emphasize her beauty and innocence for a reason. It makes the desecration that follows all the more horrific. This wasn't just an attack on a woman, it was an attack on the sacred order itself, a violation in the heart of a goddess's own sanctum. Classical sources describe a world where gods often acted with impunity, and mortals paid the price. Within that holy space, the god Poseidon assaulted Medusa. The myths narrate this violence as a grim, almost casual part of a divine drama. But there was no justice for Medusa. Athena, enraged that her temple was defiled, didn't punish Poseidon, the powerful god who committed the act. Instead, her wrath fell entirely on the victim. Athena's response is the cruel, central pivot of the entire tale. She cursed Medusa, transforming her beautiful hair into a writhing nest of serpents. And her gaze, once admired, now carried a lethal power. It turned any living thing that met it to stone. The curse was not just a punishment. It was a perversion of justice. The victim's body became the site of her shame, her agency stripped away. This transformation forced Medusa into a life of exile and isolation. The very power that would allow her to survive also became the brand that marked her as a monster. Banished to a remote, desolate island, Medusa lived in solitude. But the world of men wouldn't leave her be. Warriors and adventurers came seeking glory, eager to claim the head of the famous monster. Each time an aggressor approached, her gaze, once a curse, now a desperate tool for survival, became her only defense, turning them to stone before they could harm her. Seen this way, her petrifying power wasn't an act of malice. It was a tragic, brutal form of self-preservation. It was a boundary, forged from pain to prevent any further violation. Then came Perseus, the celebrated hero, sent on a quest by a scheming king, guided and armed by the gods themselves. He was clever. He knew he couldn't face Medusa directly. Using a polished shield given to him by Athena, he watched her reflection, avoiding her deadly gaze. While she was asleep, defenseless in her own sanctuary, Perseus crept in and cut off her head. The classical story frames this as a heroic triumph. But, read another way, it's a cold-blooded assassination of a woman in her own home. Perseus was merely the instrument. The gods orchestrated the kill, framing it as justice while perpetuating their own cycle of violence. Even in death, Medusa's suffering was not over. From her blood sprang Pegasus, the winged horse, and the warrior Chrysaor, symbols of beauty and power born from her pain. Her severed head became the ultimate weapon. Perseus used it to defeat his enemies, and then presented it to his patron, Athena. The goddess mounted the head on her own shield, the Eid turning Medusa's face into a symbol of her divine power, a tool to petrify her foes. The moral inversion is staggering. Medusa was assaulted, punished, exiled, hunted, killed, and then her memory was institutionalized as a weapon for the very powers that destroyed her. For centuries, that was the end of her story. But today, Medusa is being Modern thinkers and artists see her not as a monster, but as a symbol of survival and resistance. Feminist scholars view her as a powerful metaphor for how society punishes victims of sexual violence, turning their trauma against them. Others see her as a boundary figure, a stark warning about unchecked power and divine cruelty. Her image, once a mark of horror, is now a symbol of righteous rage, of protection, and of fierce, untamable female power. So, who was the real monster? Medusa, whose gaze was a tragic defense, the gods who used her and discarded her, or the culture that turned a victim into a terrifying legend? The myth offers no easy answers. Perhaps Medusa is the ultimate boundary, a timeless test of who we choose to see as human and who we choose to demonize. What do you think? Vote in our poll. Was Medusa a monster, a victim, or a boundary? Let us know which reading of her story moved you the most and why. Thanks for watching.